Where the Heart Fell. Chapter 1. The midday sun beat down over the dry plains as the wagon rolled to a halt in front of the Weston ranch. Dust swirled in the air, dancing in golden shafts of light that filtered through the tall cottonwoods. Shanna Dawson's wrists ached beneath the ropes binding her. Her hat had been lost hours ago, and the sun had scorched her skin red. Her lips were cracked, and her dark hair clung to her face, damp with sweat. Clay Weston didn't offer her water. He jumped down from the driver's seat and strode around to yank open the back gate of the wagon. "Out!" he barked. Shanna lifted her chin. "You could untie me first." He narrowed his eyes but pulled a knife from his belt and sliced the rope loose. "Fine. Wouldn't want you falling and blaming me for your own clumsiness." She rubbed at her wrists, then clambered down, stumbling when her foot caught on the edge. Her legs gave way, too long cramped in one position, and she started to fall. Strong hands caught her before she hit the dirt. For one fleeting moment, she felt the warmth of his grip, the steadiness of his body. Then he shoved her back upright with a sneer. "Don't expect a soft landing every time you trip. I don't carry dead weight." Shanna bristled. "Why did you take me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed her by the arm, not roughly but firmly, and marched her toward the house. "I want answers," she said. "You'll get them," he said over his shoulder, "after you scrub the floors, haul the water, and finish dinner. Then maybe I'll waste breath explaining why a liar like you is exactly where she deserves to be." Her stomach twisted. "I'm not lying." He ignored her, dragging open the heavy door and shoving it wide. The cabin was simple: sturdy furniture, wide hearth, dusty windows. The kitchen smelled of ash and old bread. A few dishes sat in the sink, as if abandoned mid-routine. "You'll keep this place clean, you'll cook my meals, you'll work hard, and you'll keep your mouth shut." He turned to her, his grey eyes like ice. "You won't ask about going home. You won't pretend you don't deserve this." Her voice trembled. "I don't even know you." He leaned in. "No, but I know you, or at least the kind of woman you are." She stepped back. "You've made a mistake." "No," he said. "I finally made things right." By late afternoon, she was sweating over a basin, scrubbing dishes with water from the pump out back. It was heavy work, her muscles unused to labor like this. When she tried to carry a full bucket inside, her arms shook. The door banged open behind her. She stumbled halfway across the yard, sloshing water over her skirt. "You'll drown yourself if you keep moving like that," Clay said. "I'm trying—" He was beside her before she could protest further. He took the bucket with one hand and walked it into the house as though it weighed nothing. She followed, stunned. He set it down near the fireplace. "Next time, carry half and make 2 trips. Or is simple arithmetic too much for a city girl?" "I'm not from the city." He gave her a look that dripped with contempt. Could have fooled me. That night, she lay curled on a thin mattress in the small back room. Her body ached in ways it never had before. Clay had barely spoken during dinner, save to criticize her cooking. And yet, when her hands had started to shake peeling potatoes, he'd taken the knife from her and finished without a word. He was cruel in voice, distant, angry. But his hands didn't match the poison in his tone. And Shanna knew she was in far more danger than she'd first thought. Because Clay Weston wasn't a brute. He was something worse. He was a man who could hate her, while still reaching to catch her when she fell. Chapter 2. Shanna's arms trembled as she scrubbed the porch floor with a rag soaked in soapy water. The sun had barely cleared the horizon, but already her dress clung to her back. Dust swirled around her with every breeze, undoing her effort as fast as she worked. Clay stepped out of the house behind her, boots heavy on the wooden planks. "You missed a spot." She paused, biting the inside of her cheek. "If you'd like to do it yourself, I'd be happy to watch." A shadow of a smirk crossed his face, just a flicker, but it vanished as quickly as it came. You've got nerve for someone who owes a debt. I owe nothing. He leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed over his chest. My brother would say otherwise. The mention of his brother chilled her. I told you, I'm not the one you think I am. You expect me to believe there are two women with the same face, same eyes, same voice? His gaze cut through her like glass. Don't insult me. She looked away, swallowing the words she couldn't say. Not yet. Not while her sister's name still rested on his lips like a curse. He stepped off the porch and walked past her toward the barn. You're wasting daylight. The goats don't feed themselves. The barn was warmer than outside, the air thick with hay and sweat and the musky scent of animals. Shanna struggled to lift a small bale into the feeding trough. Her arms shook with the effort, fingers slipping against the twine. Clay appeared at her side again, silent as a ghost, and took the bale from her. He didn't speak, just tossed it into place like it weighed nothing. I could have done it, she muttered. You would have thrown your back out and wasted more time. His voice was ice. Then why help? He looked at her, eyes cool and unreadable. Because if I break you too soon, you'll be no use to me. The words cut. She blinked hard, refusing to let him see her cry. Not all men are like your brother, she said softly. Some don't deserve punishment. Clay stilled. Something passed behind his eyes. Pain, maybe, or guilt, but it vanished quickly. My brother is dead, he said, low and flat. And the girl who sent him to his grave is standing in front of me, pretending she's someone else. Her heart pounded. She'd sworn to protect Gina, to bear the weight of this mistake if it came to that. But Clay's grief, it was sharp, jagged. It clung to him like the dust on his boots. He turned and left the barn. She stayed behind, sinking to her knees in the straw, letting the tears fall in the quiet shadows. That night, Shanna burned her fingers on the cast-iron skillet while frying potatoes. She yelped, dropping the spatula with a clang. Before she could blink, Clay was beside her. He caught her hand and pulled it under the cold water tap. His grip was tight, not painful, but firm, and he didn't speak as he held her hand there. The chill bit into her skin, numbing the sting. You should have told me you didn't know your way around a stove, he said after a long moment. I do, just not ones that want to kill me. The corner of his mouth twitched. You've got a sharp tongue for a girl with burned fingers. She glanced up at him. His face was so close. She could see the dark circles under his eyes, the stubble along his jaw, the tired fury that never left him. And beneath it all, something else, something breaking. She whispered, Why are you really doing this? His hand released hers. The cold rush of water stopped. I told you, he said, stepping back, I don't like debts left unpaid. She wanted to ask whose debt, but the look in his eyes told her not to push. Not yet. Chapter 3. The wind howled through the canyon that morning, whipping dust in swirling clouds across the ranch yard. Shanna squinted against it as she poured grain into the troughs, her skirt snapping around her legs. Her fingers ached from the early frost in the air. Behind her, boots crunched in the gravel. She didn't need to turn around to know it was him. You've got it backwards, Clay said. The horses eat first, not last. She gritted her teeth. They're fine. The chickens were starving. And how would you know? You speak chicken now. She set the bucket down harder than she meant to, the echo sharp. I'm doing the best I can, she said. He walked past her, inspecting her work like a man surveying enemy lines. Then maybe your best isn't good enough. She didn't answer. Her chest felt tight, anger, humiliation, exhaustion, all twisted into a knot. Clay grabbed a pitchfork and started cleaning the stalls without saying another word. He didn't ask her to help, didn't offer to teach her, just worked in silence, his movements methodical, cold. But she noticed the sweat beading on his brow, the stiffness in his shoulder as he lifted the heavier bales. He was tired too, Still, he didn't slow down. She picked up another bucket and moved to the well. Halfway there, her boot caught on a rock. She stumbled, and the bucket tipped, splashing icy water across her front. A sharp bark of laughter rang out from behind. She turned, soaked and flushed. "Glad I could amuse you." Clay leaned against the fence, arms folded. "You're better entertainment than the cattle." She wanted to slap him. Instead, she said, "I hope one day you look back at yourself and feel shame." He didn't flinch, but something flickered in his eyes, something old and aching. He stepped forward slowly, closing the distance. "You think I don't already," he said, voice quiet. Then he walked past her, leaving muddy footprints in his wake. That evening she cooked again, this time stew with hard biscuits. It wasn't good, but it was hot. She set his plate down in silence and sat across the table. They ate without speaking, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the mantel and the clink of cutlery. "You cook like a woman who's never had to work for a meal," he muttered, swallowing a spoonful. "Maybe I just wasn't taught by someone who insulted me every 5 minutes." He looked up at her, eyes steady. "You think I'm doing this to be cruel, aren't you?" He leaned back in his chair, the fire casting shadows across his face. "I'm doing this because pain teaches better than pity." Her throat tightened. "I don't need your lessons," she whispered. "You do if you want to survive out here." "I am surviving." A beat of silence passed between them. Then he said, almost too quietly to hear, "You remind me of her, you know, the way you fight back, the way you lie." She stared down at her bowl. The guilt clawed up her throat, but she didn't speak. Couldn't. Not yet. Later that night, when the house was quiet and the fire had burned low, Shanna stood by the window in the guest room, staring out at the moonlit fields. A rustle behind her made her jump. Clay stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "I fixed the hinge on the barn door. It won't slam anymore." She blinked, startled. "You didn't have to tell me that." "Didn't want you whining about ghosts again." Despite herself, her lips twitched. "That only happened once." "Once was enough." For a moment, something soft moved between them, almost like peace. Then he said, voice harder now, "Don't expect kindness from me, Shanna. It's not something I give freely." "I don't expect anything," she replied, "but that doesn't mean I don't notice." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away. And Shanna sank down onto the edge of the bed, heart heavy with everything unsaid. Chapter 4. The days blurred together into a rhythm of labour and silence. Shanna rose before dawn and worked until her bones ached. The ranch was unforgiving, mud, heat, biting winds, but not half as unforgiving as the man who owned it. Clay barked orders, corrected her without mercy, and never offered thanks. But he also never let her truly falter. When her arms gave out carrying a bucket of water, he appeared behind her wordlessly and lifted it from her hands. He didn't speak. He didn't scold her. He just carried it the rest of the way and set it down by the house. "You're lucky I hate seeing my floors muddy," he muttered when she stared at him in stunned silence. It wasn't kindness. Not really, but it wasn't cruelty either. That evening, a summer storm rolled in without warning. Thick clouds smothered the sun, and lightning cracked the horizon. Clay returned late from the pasture, soaked to the skin. Shanna had a towel waiting by the door. He looked at it, then at her, then took it without a word. She turned back to the hearth, stirring the pot of stew she'd managed to stretch from leftovers. "You burn it?" he asked behind her. She didn't turn around. "It's edible." "I'll be the judge of that." He sat heavily at the table, his clothes damp, but his presence still somehow too large for the room. She brought him a bowl and then sat across from him, cradling her own. They ate in silence for several long minutes. "I fixed the coop door," she said at last. "I noticed," he said. "Didn't think you had it in you." She looked up sharply. You think I'm useless? He didn't look away. I think you're pretending to be something you're not. What does that mean? It means women like you, soft, pretty, used to the easy life. You don't last out here. And yet you're still here. His words weren't gentle, but his voice wasn't as sharp as usual. Shanna met his eyes. Maybe I'm more than what I look like. A beat of silence passed. Maybe, he said quietly. That night she lay in bed with the windows cracked, the storm rumbling outside, the scent of rain mixed with dust. Sleep wouldn't come. Her thoughts tangled with memories of home, of Gina, and of the man sleeping just down the hall who haunted her in every way. She thought of how his shoulders hunched as he worked, how his hands were calloused and rough from years of ranching, how he looked at her sometimes like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve, and how, despite the bitterness in his voice, he never let her fail completely. A soft knock at the door startled her. She sat up. Yes? It opened slowly. Clay stepped in, a faint scowl on his face like he hated himself for even being there. The barn roof's leaking. I need your help keeping the horses calm. She nodded, already throwing on her shawl. Together they walked through the wet, half-lit yard to the barn. Thunder boomed as they worked side by side, checking locks and calming the skittish animals. In the dim light, their hands brushed once. Neither of them pulled away. And for a brief second, Shanna saw it, what he looked like without the anger, the grief, the armor. He looked like a man who had once known how to love. And she wondered, despite everything, if that man still lived somewhere inside him. Chapter 5. The morning after the storm, the air smelled like wet earth and regret. Shanna moved through the day in silence. Her hands were scraped from the rough barnwork, her shoulders sore, but Clay hadn't said a word about last night. No acknowledgement, no thank you. And yet, when she entered the kitchen, the fire was already lit. She blinked at it, frowning. That wasn't like him. You move slower than the cows, his voice came from behind her. She turned, clutching the edge of the table to keep her voice steady. You lit the fire? You think I'd let you burn the biscuits again? He shot back, pouring himself coffee. Her cheeks flushed. They weren't burnt. They were black on the bottom. A pause. His gaze slid to her bandaged hands. You should have worn gloves. I didn't have any. Another pause. I left a pair in the barn, he muttered. Try not to ruin them. It wasn't kindness, not really, but it was something. The sun beat down hard that afternoon as Shanna tried to repair the broken fence post near the edge of the field. Her body screamed with every movement. Sweat soaked her blouse. Let me, Clay's voice came, rough as ever. He took the hammer from her hand without waiting. She opened her mouth to argue. Don't, he cut her off. You've done enough today. She stood to the side, heart thudding. Watched him work. Watched the way the muscles in his forearms flexed, the way his jaw tensed when the nail didn't go in cleanly. He worked like he lived, angry, intense, full of things he didn't say. After the post was set, he looked at her. You always this stubborn? She folded her arms. You always this mean? That startled a half laugh from him. It sounded rusty, like he hadn't used it in years. I guess we both have our faults. Their eyes locked, and something passed between them. Not forgiveness, not yet. But the space between anger and understanding. Something fragile, something dangerous. That night she had another coughing spell. The dry dust of the prairie clung to her lungs. She tried to hide it, but Clay heard. She didn't expect him to come bursting into her room. You sound like you're choking on nails, he snapped, dropping a glass of water on her nightstand. I'm fine, she croaked, voice raw, like hell. He knelt beside her, pressing a cool hand to her forehead. You're burning up, he muttered, anger edging into worry. Why didn't you say anything? Because you'd just tell me to tough it out, she whispered. His jaw worked, then he stood. Stay there. He returned with a damp cloth and broth she hadn't seen him prepare. "You don't have to—" "Shut up and drink," he said, carefully spooning it toward her mouth. Tears pricked her eyes at the gesture. "I'm not Gina," she whispered suddenly. His hand froze mid-air. "What?" "I'm not my sister. Whatever you think I did to you, you're wrong." His face changed, just for a second, like the floor shifted under him. And then it was gone. "You're lying," he said quietly. "You just don't want to face what you did." She looked at him then, eyes brimming. "Number, I'm protecting someone who doesn't deserve it." He stood slowly. "Then we're both fools." He left without another word, and she cried herself to sleep, because for the first time it felt like something inside him wanted to believe her. Something inside him might already be breaking. Chapter 6. Shanna was up before the sun, moving slowly as the fever's fog faded from her mind. Her limbs were still sore, but the tightness in her chest had lessened. She walked outside, blinking into the cool dawn light, and stopped. The bucket was already filled at the well. She stared at it, still wet, freshly drawn. "Clay." "Don't get used to it," came his voice from the porch. She turned. He was sitting with a mug of coffee in one hand, boots crossed, gaze unreadable. "I wasn't going to say thank you," she said. His lip twitched. "Good." But she saw it, the flicker of something, softer. Later that day, the two of them worked in the barn mending tack. The silence between them had a different texture now, not sharp and jagged, but tense and warm, like a string pulled tight between two people trying not to touch. "I didn't ask for any of this," Shanna said quietly, stitching leather. "I didn't ask for Tim to die," Clay shot back without looking up. Her voice faltered. He really loved her, didn't he?" Clay stopped, the rawness in his eyes flashing for just a moment. "He wrote her letters," he said finally. "All the things he never said out loud. The last one, he told her. They'd been together, that he thought she loved him back." Shanna looked down at her hands. "He never sent that letter, did he?" Clay's jaw clenched. "No." "Then maybe she never knew." Silence stretched between them. "You're not her," he said finally, voice hoarse, "but you let me believe it." "I had to," she whispered, "to protect her, even when I hated her for it." He looked at her then, really looked, and maybe for the first time he saw her. Not Gina, not a ghost of the past. Shanna. That night, a storm rolled in again, not the thunderous kind, but the quiet one. Wind howling through the rafters, rain tapping the windows like a secret wanting to be told. Shanna couldn't sleep. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and walked to the kitchen. Clay was already there, leaning against the counter, bottle in hand. His eyes met hers. Something dark and vulnerable passed between them. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked softly. He took a slow sip. "Didn't want to." The silence wasn't awkward, just heavy. "I was wrong," he said suddenly. Her heart paused. "I shouldn't have treated you the way I did. I thought hurting you would make me feel better." He swallowed. "But it didn't." She took a step closer. "So why do you keep trying?" His eyes flicked up. "Because I'm afraid if I stop, I'll want you for real." The air thickened between them. Then she was in his arms. No one said a word. There was no lead-up, no warning. He kissed her like he was starved, his hands in her hair, her face, her hips. Her lips parted on a gasp, and she clung to him like the storm outside might sweep her away. They didn't make it to the bedroom, the floor, the rug, his coat beneath her. It didn't matter. It wasn't revenge anymore. It wasn't anger. It was need. And when it was over, when the storm had quieted outside and inside, he lay beside her, breathless. But in the silence that followed, he didn't pull her close. He turned away. And Shanna knew in her heart it still wasn't love. Not yet. But maybe it could be. Chapter 7. The days after the storm blurred into a rhythm Shanna hadn't expected. Quiet mornings, shared chores, fewer cruel words from Clay. Sometimes he'd help her carry the heavier buckets. Sometimes he'd hand her a blanket when the nights grew cold. And at night, he would touch her like she was the only thing that could steady him. But he never kissed her in the daylight, and he never once called her by her name. One morning, as Shanna folded laundry outside, the sound of hooves clattered into the yard. A wagon pulled up with a woman standing tall in the seat, elegant, poised, and dressed in riding skirts too clean for a ranch. Clay walked out of the barn. He froze for a beat when he saw the visitor. "Eleanor," he said. Shanna's hands paused mid-fold. The woman smiled. "You never answered my last letter. I figured I'd come check if the rumors were true." "What rumors?" Clay asked, tone flat. "That you'd taken in a woman," she said, casting a glance toward Shanna. "A Dawson girl, no less." Shanna felt her breath stop. Clay didn't deny it. Eleanor laughed lightly. "Are you still planning to marry Clay? Or has the wild prairie finally softened you?" His answer came too quickly. "I haven't changed." That night, Shanna sat in the barn, hugging her knees to her chest. Clay came to find her, his expression unreadable. "You didn't tell her," Shanna said. "You didn't correct her." "There was nothing to correct," he replied. "But she thinks," her voice cracked, "she thinks you're still going to marry her." He looked at her, something twisting in his gaze. "You knew what this was." She stood, shaking. "No, I hoped it could be more." His face hardened. "That was your mistake." Her tears burned but didn't fall. "You've had what you wanted, haven't you? Took your revenge, made me fall for you." His voice was low, strained. "I told you not to." "But you let me." Silence. "You can go," he said finally. "Pack your things. I'll take you home in the morning." Clay didn't speak the entire ride to the Dawson homestead. The weight in Shanna's chest grew heavier with every turn of the wheel. When they reached the edge of the property, she climbed down from the wagon. He handed her a small bag, her few belongings. No apology, no explanation, just a goodbye he couldn't say. She didn't look back as she walked away, and Clay Weston, who once believed revenge would heal him, rode away with a heart heavier than any burden he'd ever carried. Weeks passed. He drank more, spoke less. The ranch grew quiet and bitter, but nothing silenced the ache in his chest. Then one market day in town, as he passed by the mercantile, he saw her. Shanna, standing still, clutching a small basket of cloth. Her figure fuller, her cheeks flushed, a quiet maternal glow around her. Pregnant, and Clay Weston, cruel, haunted Clay, felt the ground tilt beneath him. He called her name. She turned. Their eyes locked, neither moved, but something shifted in his soul. He knew. He had left behind more than just love. He had left behind his child. Chapter 8. The storm returned on the night Shanna went into labor. Wind howled through the trees as the midwife arrived in a rush. Her sister Gina hovered nearby, wringing her hands, while Shanna gritted her teeth and clutched the bedpost. The pain was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. He wouldn't come. Why would he? She was just the woman he used to soothe his grief, the one who wasn't even meant to be part of his life. And yet, miles away, in a dim corner of the saloon, Clay Weston slammed down his glass. The storm outside echoed the one inside him. He hadn't touched Shanna in weeks, but not a day had passed that her voice didn't haunt him, her softness, her fire, her absence. He shouldn't have looked for her in town, but he did. He shouldn't have stared like a fool when he saw her swollen belly, but he couldn't help it. And when he overheard the stable boy muttering, "That Dawson girl's giving birth tonight," Clay dropped everything. He rode like the devil himself was chasing him, through mud and wind and memory. The door to the Dawson cabin flung open, and everyone turned. Soaked and breathless, Clay stood in the doorway, eyes locked on Gina, then the midwife. Then the scream from the back room stole his breath. "Where is she?" His voice cracked. Gina stepped aside, fury in her glare. "You don't get to be here." But he was already moving. Shanna lay in sweat and agony, tears leaking from her eyes, when the door creaked open again. She thought it was the wind, until she heard his voice, broken and soft. "Shanna!" Her head turned. Clay, soaked, pale, desperate. She tried to push him away with a breathless whisper, "Go away!" But he crossed the room in 2 steps, knelt by her side, and grasped her hand. "I was wrong," he whispered. "So damn wrong." Tears spilled freely now, hers and his. "I thought hurting you would heal something in me," he said, "but it didn't. I just broke myself instead." Shanna gasped in pain again, her hand crushing his. He held on tighter. "I love you," he said. "I should have said it then and 100 times since." The midwife interrupted. "If you want her to hear it again, help her through this. Baby's coming." Clay stayed. He held her. He murmured every word he'd never let himself say. And when the child finally came, screaming, red-faced, alive, Clay cradled the baby like something holy. He looked down at the bundle, then at the woman who gave him something he never thought he deserved. "I'm yours," he said hoarsely, "if you'll have me, forever." Shanna, exhausted and raw, whispered through tears, "It's always been you." They named the baby Timothy. And on the porch of the Dawson home, as the storm cleared and dawn broke over the hills, Clay Weston held his family close, wild, broken, and finally whole. Epilogue. 3 years later. The sun dipped low behind the western hills, casting a golden haze over the ranch Clay and Shanna now called home. Shanna stood barefoot on the porch, her dress fluttering in the breeze. A second child nestled against her hip. A little girl with her father's eyes and her mother's quiet strength. In the yard, Timothy, now a sturdy toddler, chased a squealing lamb while Clay leaned against the fence, grinning like a man who'd learned how to smile again. He looked up as if he felt Shanna watching. Their eyes met. There was no cruelty there anymore, only warmth, only love. He crossed the yard, wrapped an arm around her waist, and kissed her temple. "Never thought I'd get this," he murmured. Shanna leaned into him. "You almost didn't." Clay chuckled, low and soft. "You were too stubborn to give up on me." "I didn't do it for you," she teased, then looked down at the children. "I did it for them." He kissed her properly then, lingering and grateful. And in the quiet of the coming night, the wind rustled the trees. Not as a threat this time, but a whisper of peace hard won and long deserved. Their past would always be there, but so would their future, together.